I'm Jefferson Martin, and this is Textbook 1, Chapter 10, Youth Subcultures and Delinquency. And this is the introduction. History is full of elders believing that younger generations have abandoned the most important attitudes, values, and beliefs of their parents. When kids grow into adults, they often wonder how adults survive so long while being so ignorant, out of touch, and old-fashioned. This leads to a generation gap. A generation gap refers to the differences in attitudes, values, and behaviors between two generations of people, usually referring to differences between parents and their children. The youth subculture is the unique attitudes, values, beliefs, and behavioral practices that distinguish a subculture. Interests in the youth subcultures have been on the rise since the 60s and 70s. Culture, subcultures, and countercultures. Culture is the entire body of shared and learning beliefs, values, attitudes, traditions, normative expressions, expectations, and other forms of knowledge that is passed on from one generation to the next within a society. There exists a variety of subcultures that share most of the attitudes, values, and beliefs of the overall culture. However, they also adhere to values and beliefs that are unique to the specific culture as well. Hans Sebald referred to culture as a blueprint for behavior of a total society, and subculture as the blueprint for behavior of a smaller group within the society. As long as the smaller group accepts and conforms to most of the norms of a larger society while maintaining its uniqueness, it is usually considered to be a subculture. If the subculture differs to the point that it rejects the overall attitudes, values, and beliefs of the larger society and offers a substitute normative system, then it becomes a counterculture. And that's it.
Okay. The creation of youth subculture. The beginnings of youth subcultures can be traced to the 19th century. Ralph England viewed the 20th century as reinforcing the development of youth subcultures in various ways. He viewed the youth subculture as based on the values and pleasures, materialism, and supported by money, and expressed those values in society. When those values led to behavior disapproved by adults, delinquency can be the result. In the modern industrial society, there is a prolonged period of adolescence that lacks a clear, defined rite of passage to adulthood. This helps create the adolescent subculture with distinctive attitudes, values, and behaviors. Roles of the youth subculture. Teenagers experience social conditions that may alienate many of them from their parents' generations and many of their parents' traditional social values. The feeling of alienation can manifest in varieties of ways, which would be considered delinquent. There are three main reasons why American youths tend to experience alienation from adult world and why the sense of alienation leads to the formation of a strong sense of identity, togetherness with other youths. The first one is they interact with each other more frequently and more intimately than they do with members of other categories. They have a way of life and belief that are somewhat different than members of other society categories. They think of themselves as belonging in a specific group, and they are defined by those who do not share their traits. American youth fit this description. The subculture is not a primary group. Unlike the family, the youth subculture is characterized by intimate face-to-face interactions. Okay, some of the traits are common values and norms, a unique lingo, distinctive forms of mass media, common styles and fads, a sense of belonging, unique distinctive status criteria, social support, and gratification and needs. The formation of youth subculture serves as an important frame and for teenagers to enhance personal and social identities and give meaning to their lives. Very few meaningful sub roles are provided in adolescence in the adult world. That's it.
Alright, I'm Jorge Rodriguez, and I'll be reading on subcultures and youth values. Distinctive elements of youth subculture. Juveniles tend to differentiate themselves away from the common norms of adults by having different values, which manifests itself into the youth subculture. Very meaningful social roles are provided for adolescents in the youth world. Youth values. Values is defined as a set of beliefs and ideas that are held in high esteem by a particular group. Delinquents essentially do have a sense of social values as their parents because they are first socialized by them, but the behaviors or attitudes of a certain value is what differs them from the adults. Most teenagers understand the norm of social values as their parents because many of them have a sense of guilt when they violate them. First, adults and juveniles have conflicting lifestyles which lead to different values. Adults value the automobile based on its utilization, basically transportation. Youth value and use the automobile for entertainment, drag racing, and other activities that went against the social norms of adults. Next, the idea of independence race conflict. Youth assert their independence as to relieve themselves from the outside pressures that suppress them, such as adults or any authority figure, this leading to delinquent acts. Most adults value independence in a more nationalistic, abstract sense, meaning adults have strong patriotic feelings of independence. Lastly, the value of conformity. Youth tend to highly value cliques in high school. The dangers of cliques is that many certain requirements may resort to deviant acts and could potentially be harmful. Adults value the clique as a very socializing way, but prefer not to go to extremes, which lead to harmful acts. Youth in America are socialized to some basic cultural values, but also have values or behave in ways that contradict the norm. Tattoos and body piercings. Tattoos and body piercings are predominantly used by sailors, prostitutes, motorcycle gangs, prison inmates, and other social outcasts. Tattoos have been viewed by many as a sign of rebellion by delinquent juveniles. Youth now have easy access to many tattoo shops, conveniently placed around the community in small town squares, malls, and street corners. According to Thompson and Bynum, it is estimated that somewhere between 12 million and 20 million Americans, almost one-fourth of all those between the ages 18 and 50, have tattoos. Generation X use tattoos as a form of identity the same way the baby boomers use identity bracelets. Tattoos used to be a sign of rebellion, but recently been widely accepted and part of this youth subculture. Teenage boys commonly get tattoos on biceps, forearms, and backs. Teenage girls commonly get tattoos on their lower backs and ankles. Middle-class adults and their children have used different ways to redefine tattoos so their children won't be viewed as delinquent. Tattoos are now simply for artistic purposes and important social, political, religious meanings according to the parents and children. The most common type of body piercings are found on the earlobe and is widely accepted for women, teenage girls, and infants. Piercings are more common among men and are viewed as deviant if a man were to have one. Piercings were associated with gang membership, motorcycling, or being gay, but today many athletes, rock stars, and country music performers have turned piercings into a fad. There's different ways to show signs of different types of piercings. For adventurous, piercings are more likely found on the nose, tongue, and navel. For signs of rebellion, they're found on eyelid, lips, and nipples. Many of the youths who grow older tend to regret their badge of rebellion.
My name is Kimberly. I will be doing dress, grooming, and fads. Some of the way teenagers express their identity within youth subculture can be found in their norms regarding dress, grooming, and various fads. We have already looking at 2 tattoos and body piercings. Vander Sander indicated that unique culture patterns among youth find expressions and fads having to do with musical recordings, entertainment, idols, and dance steps, personal adornments, and hairstyles. Dress, grooming, and personal appearance become the most important vehicles by which juveniles can symbolize their status. According to the research conducted by Harris Interactive, Americans between ages 8 and 21, approximately 57 million youths, spend around 172 billion annually within 15% of that spending roughly 172 billion annually within about 15% of that spending, taking about 3.5 per year, and in 2011 reached approximately 209 billion. Teenagers are bewildered by their parents' failure to understand that one item is in and another one is out, or how their parents could identify something as a luxury item. The second part, mass media, social media, and technomedia. Today's teenagers are no strangers to mass media, social media, and technology. Researchers show that they spend about 6 hours per week reading, whereas they spend almost 8 hours talking on the phone, 12 hours listening to music, and almost 14 hours watching television, and not including email, approximately 17 hours per week on the internet. After World War II, a large number of magazines, books, records, movies, and television shows were aimed at youth market. Today, magazines such as Teen Beat, Spin, and Rolling Stones are aimed at youthful customers and simultaneously dictate the reflection of teenagers' performance in music. Lawrence and Associates found that adolescents on average watch 147 minutes of television daily, approximately 17 hours per week. Lawrence discovered that many of the attitudes, values, and beliefs of adolescents, especially regarding standards and dress and personal conduct, were formed by television.
My name is Giovanni. The first section is sexting. Sexting, the sending of the semi-nude and nude photographs via cell phone. A poll conducted by the Pew Research Center found that although only 4% of 12 to 17-year-olds admitted sending out nude photos of themselves, 50% said they also received such photos. Older teens were more likely to have been involved in sexting, with 30% of 17-year-olds reporting they had received racy photos. And although impressing a boyfriend or a girlfriend or hooking up is often cited as the motivation for sexting, peer pressure seems to be the strongest motivator. The next section is language. Argot specialized slang or jargon that promotes group cohesiveness and provided boundary maintenance. One of the most important ways that any subculture can symbolically distinguish itself from large culture is by adopting a unique language or jargon. The most important symbolic element of youth subculture is the distinctive language, because it is the means for teenagers to exclude outsiders and intensify group identity.
My name is Juquante McCoy, and I'm going to talk to you about juvenile runaways. Much of the research on juvenile runaways focused on home, problems, and family. The main issues is deciphering runaways from throwaways. Some juveniles are run away by choice, and some are given up on and thrown away by force. Running away from home is a delinquent act. 55,000 to 100,000 juveniles are arrested every year for running away. Less than 20% of runaways come in contact with the police. So actually 500,000 to 2 million kids run away every year in America. Periods that cause kids to run away are conflict and wars. In the 1930s, it was the Great Depression. In the 1940s, it was World War II. In the 1960s, it was the flower child era. The push and pull factor is the cause of running away. Problems at home and the pressure to succeed in society and the act of wanting independence is what causes most juveniles to run away. Many run away end up in jail because they get involved in street crimes for survival. Street gangs, prostitution, drugs, theft, and violence. Drug usage is increased in runaways, especially women. Most runaways were abused and neglected by their parents. That's why they ran away. They are more vulnerable to predators, such as pimps and people interested in child pornography. For runaways, juvenile prostitution is a way of survival. Runaways see it as a way of easy money and income. Even if they run away with resources such as money, those resources will eventually deplete, causing them to take desperate measures for survival. Even if you stay with a friend, you can only stay for so long. Sex might be in exchange for favors, for drugs, for shelter, for food, for clothes. Many people run away because they were sexually abused, only to continue to be sexually abused on the streets. Most teenage runaways become prostitutes. Over 1,000 juveniles are arrested every year in America for juvenile prostitution. Those are only the ones who are caught. It is estimated that 100 to 300,000 kids are juvenile prostitutes. Female juvenile runaways are more vulnerable. Some are forced into prostitution and some are willing to be prostitutes. There are two different types of prostitutes. There's a situational prostitute, which is only prostituting for the time being, and there are vocational prostitutes, which enter prostitution as a career. Not all juvenile prostitutes are females. Surprisingly, police report more contact with male juvenile prostitutes than they do female juvenile prostitutes. In the Tenderloin and San Francisco area is a hotspot for many juvenile runaways that get introduced into prostitution. On Market Street from Mason and Tyler, many male juvenile prostitutes are there. It is known as the hotspot. They call it the meat rack.
I'm Chris Maya, and I have Juveniles and Drugs. Little background: in September of 1986, Ronald Reagan declared war on drugs. The first President Bush continued this war and sent American troops to Panama to capture Manuel Noriega. By 1990, drug use was seen as America's biggest social issue, especially for youths. Every president since has continued this war, and drug use isn't that new, however. Opium use has been around since the 18th century. Opium, morphine, and heroin were used for medical purposes. But thanks to the Harrison Act of 1940 with Supreme Court decisions, I won't read them to you, made legal acquisition of narcotics almost impossible. There are about 200,000 estimated narcotics users, and this decision caused illegal drug markets and dealers to emerge. By 1950s, drug use became in line with juveniles and viewed as youthful rebellion, associated with lower class youths and gangs. By 1960s and 70s, juvenile drug use came to national attention. One of the ways juvenile subcultures would express their rebellions against the adult world, and marijuana was drug of choice. In the 1970s and 80s, saw drug-related deaths of many famous celebrities and popular faces to the public. Many youths were fans of these celebrities, and this caused public awareness of drug problem to rise significantly. People wondered how widespread the problem was, especially among youths. The drug-related death of teen idol River Phoenix in 1993 fanned the flames of concern. Approximately 100,000 youths under the age of 18 are arrested for non-alcoholic illegal drug use. This only represents a fraction of illegal drug use amongst juveniles. According to National Institute on Drug Use, drug and alcohol use has begun to increase among teens. By 2005, smoking among teens decreased, but the use of alcohol and painkillers increased. Studies show that smoking, drinking, and some type of illegal drug usage is increasing, especially among teenage girls. Use of the drugs and alcohol related to each other and minor and violent forms of delinquency. The younger you start using drugs, the more likely you will continue use, especially if you associate with other drug users. A juvenile subculture that engages and or promotes violation of parental norms is likely to accentuate drug taking and related forms of delinquency among its members. Juveniles and sex. All right. Sexual activities are illegal for juveniles. However, that doesn't stop them. 33% of ninth graders have had sexual intercourse. 70% of both sexes report having sex by their 19th birthday. It's a status offense of promiscuity, and the American society has a double standard, enforcing girls' virtues more strictly than boys. Official data shows that females are more likely to be brought to court for sexual offenses than boys. Let's see. Newsweek poll in 2000 reported 47% of teens have had sexual intercourse, resulted in referring to the 1990s as a new sexual revolution. The new millennium saw a new virginity and abstinence movement among teens as well. Youths who took abstinence pledge were less likely to engage in sex versus youths who did not. Still, 1 in 5 sexually active teens by 15 and greater than 50% of 15 and 19-year-olds. And juvenile sexual activity has led to social problem of teen pregnancy, with 500,000 teen girls giving birth each year, and a third of young women in America get pregnant during their teens. 25% of teen girls who gave birth have another baby within 2 years. And go.
Hi, I'm Angel Martinez. Youth countercultures and delinquency. To this point, our discussion of delinquency associated with the youth subculture has focused on nonviolent activities such as running away, prostitution, drugs, and premature oral sex. Subcultures sometimes turn into countercultures. Countercultures are groups that reject society's values and norms and replaces them with others that run counter to those of the larger culture. Teenage satanic groups. Over the past several decades, teenagers have shown an increase in interest in Satanism, and many popular rock and heavy metal groups capitalize on this interest. Many of the popular rock and heavy rock groups play live concerts and record tapes and describe the virtues of animals and human sacrifices, sexual orgies, suicide, and even murder. There have been rumors that satanic cults are responsible for everything from animals being injured or killed on Halloween night to human kidnapping and mass murderers. The extent of teenage Satanism is not known. Church of Satan claimed that annual sales of the Satanic Bible exceeded 500,000 copies, with evidence that various agencies complied to the annual sales, like law enforcement agencies, concerned parents, school officials, and fundamentalist Christians. Teenage Satanists may be involved in criminal activities, and research indicates that teenage Satanists are far more likely to be dabblers. Dabblers are youngsters who listen to rock and heavy metal music with occult themes and have interest in satanic imagery. Another study divides teenage Satanists into 3 categories: softcore Satanists who just want to upset their parents, non-criminal hardcore Satanists who practice Satanism as religion, criminal hardcore Satanists who commit crime such as assault, physical abuse, animal and human sacrifices. The Coven is members of adolescent satanic counterculture in the South. Members of the Coven show no evidence of mental illness, even though they participate in delinquent activities like underage smoking and drinking and minor vandalism, etc. They do not commit any serious crimes. Youth hate groups. In the 1980s, the United States experienced an increase in the number of hate crimes. Hate crimes are crimes directed at people because of their race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or some other physical or cultural characteristics that sets apart from the predator. These crimes often involve groups such as the skinheads, neo-Nazis, Ku Klux Klan, and others, and are usually often committed by young men under the age of 20. These groups are most likely composed of working class and middle class youths and are formed and maintained under a strong ideological commitment to some cause such as white supremacy, racial and ethnic purity, and anti-Satanism, homophobia, and then why do juveniles join hate groups? Sociologically, the most common explanation focuses on alienation and scapegoating. This marginality may be combined with strong feelings of alienation, a sense of futility and desperation, linked to family issues, school failure, and unemployment. I'm done.
Hi, my name is Ashley Mittenhall, and I'll be doing the section on youth subculture and delinquency prevention. With delinquent subculture, a large amount of the time, the crimes and behaviors that are shown are all non-violent behaviors. This shows us that not all adults-like behavior and values have been distinguished just yet. With this, it has been made relevant that with juvenile behavior subculture, these acts and behaviors could also be a great form of prevention in the long run. Some forms of delinquency prevention can include the following: providing positive role models, helping the youth understand in an educated way how values, beliefs, and good attitude is important, using media and technology as a good influence, help creating crime and deviance to be seen in a bad light, help them see that there are consequences to their choices and that responsibility and accountability come with every choice you make. And lastly, it is our responsibility to help the youth transition from childhood to adulthood in the easiest way we can. Another aspect of delinquency prevention is the influence of mass media on juveniles. As we watch TV, movies, listen to music, or search the internet, there is an influential aspect that promotes delinquency behavior, but what people don't understand is that over 50% of the time, These sources of media are also trying to influence the youth in a positive way. During the late 1980s and going into the 1990s, there were many influential organizations that sprung forward to help the youth in choosing the correct path. An example of this is an organization that was called Students Against Driving Drunk, also known as SADD. This organization sought to hit every form of social media with their messages in order to get the information out there that drinking and driving is not the right thing to do. Although the youth is often on social media, the organization wanted to make the extra effort to make sure the message was heard and not just seen. So they recruited popular young celebrities that youth idolizes and would listen to. These celebrities would make public announcements directed strictly towards the youth, suggesting that they enter a loyalty contract with their parents. This contract would say that they promised they would not drink until the designated age, along with a promise that they would not dabble in the practice of drug use of any kind. Another mass media campaign focused on the use of tobacco and cigarette consumption by teens. Teen celebrities jumped in with this campaign as well, by warning the youth all about the dangers smoking comes with and simply engraving into their minds that it's just not cool to smoke. One of the largest juvenile delinquency contributors is the emphasizes on confronting to the same beliefs, norms, and values that their fellow teens believe in. In order to fit in, they feel as if they need to dress and act as other cool kids do. In 2009, the sociologist Hans Scott Myrie interviewed 6 teens that labeled themselves as punk or traditional skinhead subculture. From these interviews, he discovered not only that he showed similar behavior and ideas as their age, but also suggested that the maturation theory could take a large role in juvenile growth. Lastly, most of the members of delinquency youth subculture have similar symbols like hairstyles, clothing, tattoos. But once they reach the age of 20 and 30, they slowly start to leave behind those attributes as they are figuring out who they are personally and begin to take on an adult personality such as working, getting married, and maybe even taking on parenting. This concludes our presentation on youth subcultures and delinquency.